for the Susan Taylor Podcast, where we discuss the yoga of mind, medicine, and healing. Author of Feeling Good Matters, Sexual Radiance, and the Vital Energy Program, Dr. Taylor imparts authentic knowledge and practical tools that inspire, educate, and empower us to be a healing force for positive change. So join us and take your life and our planet to the next level.
Hello and welcome to Podcast 60. Is being happy and healthy the norm? In today's podcast, I'd like to discuss mental health problems that are sweeping the nation and the cause of these problems, and then end with the solutions that can possibly fix some of these problems. There's some facts that I came across this week that were quite astonishing to me, and I thought it was time when some of you had written in and asked me about anxiety and suicide and what can we really do about that. These questions or these comments have been coming in now for the last few months, so I thought to really focus on this theme in this podcast. And I'd like to report some of the facts that I found, that suicide was the second leading cause of death among individuals between ages 10 and 24, and the fourth leading cause of death among individuals between 35 and 54. Did you know that 31.1% of U.S. adults experience an anxiety disorder at some time in their lives? That's quite high, and they're the ones that go reported. There are many that don't. Also, this was the one that really threw me for a loop. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. And the third leading cause of death, people 10 to 14. And the second leading cause of death, people aged 15 to 24. That was pretty amazing to me. So these are some of the things that we have to really think about, is what's really going on. Is being happy and healthy no longer the norm? You know, it may seem that being happy and healthy are no longer the norm, but it's, again, in certain pockets. But there's kind of like an atmosphere that we have within the whole country right now. We have an opioid epidemic sweeping the country and an obesity rate that's skyrocketing. Life expectancy is dropping and chronic diseases are rampant. Our families and communities are also being damaged at every level. Now, again, I'm not the one who likes to talk about bad news because we're going to turn this around, but this is what is right now. And when I ask people, what do you need in life to be fulfilled and happy? Usually I get good food, good friends, good relationships. I want to like my job. I want less stress. But there's really no reason why we don't have those things. But there's usually also no mention of spirituality, which is very, very interesting, because people are afraid of what they think they're bringing in when they say the word spirituality. You know, they think of religion or a self-righteous morality issue that comes to play. There's not much of an understanding of what spirituality, actually is. Spirituality is actually a domain of awareness, and many of you know that I teach a practice called a focused awareness, and I'm always talking about awareness. And the domain of awareness where we experience universal values is really what spirituality is all about. It's been a missing component in our current societal happenings. And what's causing this current situation? Well, the first thing I asked in any of our courses is, do you have a soul? And everyone says, yes, they have a soul. But then I ask them, how do you define it? And they really don't know. They actually don't know. They say, well, I don't know, but I know I have one. Well, the soul's part of your consciousness. I just finished recording last night resilience training that's coming up very, very soon. I'm going to be offering it to the public. And, I spoke about there's 5 layers of our being. And so the soul is we are spiritual beings encased in different levels of our being. And so when we talk about the soul is part of our consciousness that has meaning. It wants to contribute. It's purpose-driven. It seeks meaningful relationships and expresses itself creatively. It actually seeks the freedom and fulfillment. And that's really where we need to be as a whole in order to be healthy and happy. Without this understanding, no matter what people possess monetarily, they could achieve fame, name, prestige, they're simply not happy. And I've seen it. People with, some of the most beautiful homes, and they have beautiful children, and they're just still not happy, because we must go to the core root of life. And everyone's missing their ability to shift their focus in the direction of healing, of making themselves whole, making the planet whole, or even shift the focus in the direction of being positive, the positive force of change, not negative. So why is distraction, disturbance, and stupefaction prevalent, creating this mental and emotional instability? Well, there's a reason for this widespread feeling of despair and loss of hope. And I came up with, 4 elements to talk about. And of course, there's more, but these were 4 that came to mind when I really thought about what am I going to do in this week's podcast. And there are 4 elements that I came up with that would really contribute to this disconnect. One is lack of awareness. Again, I always say remain calm, right? Which really means consciously aware, living in the moment. Because without awareness, we get confused. We don't know who we are. We identify ourselves and build our confidence based on the labels that we create for ourselves. I'm this, I'm that, I'm not this, I'm that. We see beautiful images. We see this flash on the internet or on television for those that watch television. Things that promise the Shangri-La, the promises that we can have a life like that and we don't really have to work. That's usually the understanding. So we identify with these outside images and do our best to look like what we see on Facebook, Instagram, and all the other things that are out there. People are even disfiguring their physical bodies to have a certain breast size, lip size, not a wrinkle, the 11s. I have the 11s, and you know what? 11's great. It just shows that I'm getting to that stage in life where I have 11 instead of 1. We laugh about these kinds of things. But elective cosmetic surgeries topped out at 17.5 million last year. To me, it feels like it's a cultural lack of awareness of what really makes one happy. We're so caught up in our texting, multitasking, jobs, commutes, that we seem to lose our focus on why we've really come to be. Spiritual stress comes from not knowing our purpose. And we know our purpose when we know who we are. Remember the old saying, FOMO, fear of missing out? And that's an indication of anxiety and not knowing who we are, because we're self-centered, not centered in the self. We're grasping. And I'm not saying we. I'm on the same ball spinning around in space just like everyone else. But these are some of the problems that we have. The second I came up with is precision. We lack precision. We've become very sloppy in our ways, with our thoughts, our speech, our actions. And it starts, even in the government, sloppy speech, things that are not really thought out before that they're said. And all of us can actually say that happens at a certain time in our lives, or maybe it's on a daily basis. Our knowledge base is driven by sound bites. That's what I mean by being sloppy. It's by sound bites of information. I recently received an email advertisement from a medical course, and the course said that if I did this course over the weekend, I would be an expert by the end of the weekend. And that was scary. It was medical training. It's in an ocean of false prophets, as you've heard me say, PROFITS, selling quick results and solutions by self-proclaimed experts. We're given these sound bites of information, and we're being told it's enough to know, when in fact that is not true. So we need to be more precise in the way that we really synthesize information, the way we speak, the way we act. Really think about some of those things before we do it as a whole. I'm talking about the universe now as a whole, not an individual. Another one that I came up with is we're feeding our mind the wrong things. This kind of ties into the precision. We've concentrated on external values, again, name, fame, economic gain, when we need to shift our focus on our environment, our food chain, our relationships, what we feed our mind. Not just food, physical food, but our relationships, associations, how we think. That's feeding our mind. And that goes into that consciousness, back to what I spoke about when I said about spirituality. We must bring our life into focus and pay attention to where our foods are grown, how they're harvested, how we eat, how we sleep, how we interact with others, what we say about others or don't say about others. And then the fourth I thought about was practice. Everyone wants fame, prestige, money, admiration, and this is what's driving the society right now. False prophets promise the effects of 20 to 30 years experience in one app. It's amazing. I've seen it. If you do this app, you're not going to have meditated 20 to 30 years. You can actually gain that in this one experience. It just doesn't happen that way, friends. This is a trend that's happening, and it leaves room for false prophets to take hold and promises that one size and diet fits all and with not much work is an outright lie, actually. It creates a stupefied mind, one that believes in these falsities. And what happens is the mind weakens. The mind actually weakens and starts expecting everything to be handed over without an effort. And we see this in many people now out in the workforce. Everyone wants things, but my gosh, it took so much effort for others in the past to get there. It just can't be handed over. Well, the result of all of this is a shattered human spirit with a confused mind, feeling isolated and lack of enthusiasm for life. And the new generations have more confusion, lower self-esteem, and this is what I meant when I brought up the suicide and anxiety, than previous generations, and more anxiety. They're less stable and comfortable with knowing how to navigate these waters, these tumultuous waters right now. The waters are very, very, rough right now. We try to solve this problem, but it only compounds it with the social media technology. Technology actually creates more of an out of balance. Technology is brilliant if it's balanced with spirituality, and I spoke about that, being conscious of the self rather than self-conscious, being centered in the self rather than self-centered. If we had that strength equal to our technology, wow, life would just turn right around. Because right now, people are turning to Facebook, Instagram, that whole world to mask the pain of isolation and disconnect, creating an illusion that they're actually connecting with everyone. And everyone appears to be happy and thriving, when in fact, it's not happening, because they probably wouldn't be on those social media boards. It appears that life is amazing, even though everything and everyone is depressed and anxious in the first place. Everyone sounds like they have it all thriving, all benefiting, all life has to offer. These selfies, everyone's doing a selfie. It's amazing. Having money, fame, sex, success, nice car, the newest iPad. Advertising has hijacked our brains, and it's only getting worse due to the proliferation of the media at our fingertips. In reality, the one who has the most toys does not win, and no one is an expert, at least when they claim it, because an expert would never claim it, and no one really has figured it all out. Our minds, as I mentioned, have been hijacked and become addicted from the sensory arousal through our advertisements, social media, and cell phones. Our brain's neurocircuitry is actually changing. It relies on sound bites. People are saying, oh, we're addicted to dopamine and it's actually causing the addiction response. No, well, dopamine is also a fantastic neurotransmitter that causes and helps us with focus. So you see, that's what I mean by these sound bites. People take one little idea, they become the expert, and then they run with it. Everything, our bodies go into homeostasis. We could pull it all together. We have that ability. And for those that really want it, and you might not know where to start, write to me. I'll help you get started, because you have it all right there. You have that opportunity for freedom and fulfillment right now. You have a mind, and you also have a human body, which is a real gift. And that gift, at any time, we could change it around so that we could be a force of positive change for others. Because right now, I think that's what's really needed, and especially for the youth. The youth really need that direction, not the confusion. Because quick fixes don't treat the underlying issue of low self-confidence and loneliness, leading to distraction and disturbance, and ultimately stupefaction. And as I said, the good news is we can fix the problem. How do we do it? We can grow. We could shift our focus to what we want to become and step in the light. But we need three things, and this is what I'm going to bring up in my new resilience training that will be available soon. We need precision, concentration, and practice, which means it's not just going to come by reading a book or taking a course, but you need that systematic skill set on how you can chart the course yourself. And it has to be a complete training, not just one thing. If you follow the keto diet, it's not the only thing that's going to help you, because there's going to be other things that are a problem. You have to really look at the whole picture. We're looking at a holistic model. I know the word has been overused, but holism means to become holy, right? Healthy, holy, happy, homeostasis, all comes from that creating balance. We can do this with the awareness and focus, and we need to have the awareness and focus on what our purpose is in life. What we focus on is what we become, because the mind identifies with what it associates with. So if you have right next to you a social media app that's going off all day, the mind will become that. If you're sitting next to a saint or a sage, the mind will become that. If you're sitting next to a negative person, the mind will become that. The mind becomes whatever it identifies with. So you could do that. You could sit with this, but you don't have to identify, but that's a little bit harder. It's best to feed your mind good, pure thought, action, word, and deed. So remember, whatever's alongside the mind becomes. Hang out with saints, as I said, you become a saint. Hang out with criminals, you become a criminal. It's that simple. Research shows that focus does create happiness indeed. The mind is optimized when steady and stable, which comes through focus. Imagine being able to choose how you think and feel and not get dragged around by false impressions of what the media is presenting. We need to work with that precision, concentration, and practice, the skills to build resilience, confidence, and optimal biological expression. Remember, our genes are just a suggestion. So we can shift those genes to be optimal with our biological expression being optimized if we're going to have an experience of happiness and spiritual transformation. Well, that brings us to the ends of this podcast. Please contact me if you have any questions, comments. I have the next 2 podcasts in line to come up based on some of the feedback that we've gotten. And if you'd like, go to our YouTube channel and sign on, and you can get the podcast delivered each week. And again, until next time, remain calm.